All right, welcome to our board meeting, our special session. We're going to get started with our pledge and prayer.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father God, we thank you for this day. Thank you for the beautiful weather and what seems to be a great 4-H fair going on. I just pray that you will please help us tonight as we get ready for the start of the school year. Things coming at us quickly. Just please be with us in the decisions that we make. All right. First tonight is we need a motion to approve our agenda as it's printed.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have our policy board action items, and we're just kind of going back to some things that we had started. So approval of the handbook, I know we had it last month, but we had a few questions on some things. I wanted to make sure that everything was set the way that we wanted it to be in there. So, and looking back at that and looking through the change sheet, does anyone have any questions or clarifications that we would like to get from administrators for the handbook? We do have included in there, it has not been a part of the handbook, but we do have included in there the random drug testing policy. This is something that has been signed before, but it was never actually in the handbook and printed with how that would be taken care of and how the steps would be going forward. So that's now going to be a part of the handbook. And I don't know, Mrs. Ish, do you have anything you'd like to add about the handbook or any of that kind of change?
This is a document that everyone had signed from before me. I think it was part of our enrollment for early tonight, but they just remembered. So that's why
So that will be added in there, and it's quite lengthy, so people want to make sure that they do take a look at it. We're not going to read the entire thing, but again, it is for extracurricular activities. Specifically is some guidelines set up in there so that, you know, you would have to sign to be able to participate, that yes, you would be a part of the random drug testing should that occur. So. All right, any other clarifications on that before?
It does also affect driving to and from school, right?
You're right.
But
sorry.
not academics.
correct. They would be athletics and driving, privileges. But the goal of the entire thing is with the drug testing, if anything does come up positive, otherwise, just to let the parents know and seek support for the student. Not disciplinary through that.
All right.
Outside of athletics.
All right. Any other clarifications or questions on that, since that is a large part that was added? All right, we'll need a motion to approve the middle school, high school handbook.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next, we have approval for bus routes for 25-26. I know Mr. Lehman and Mr. Weber have been discussing this, so I know we want to get some information from Mr. Weber about how what this would look like.
Looking at moving the road that's coming out into that route, that really counts. And that leaves the question, do we want to continue kind of at the path through the last few years? Or the possibility would be to not run the path and that's what we should do, bringing it back, where the buses that were in the town would just take students and stuff and pick up more at the stops. Change would be, you really going to stop right at house, really kind of the student. Student have to walk in the street or for that stop. We used to do that. We actually started the very takes about 20,000 years, and we're not really that, about 20,000 years, so 20,000 savings to do that. So that's what I know, kind of ask that question, we can fill that.
And so as far as those drivers coming from their routes, would you say an average, how much would it lengthen their routes? Would that be?
Oh, it would probably, probably minutes to, but actually, you know, maybe, going, whether you're speaking with a one,
And
and it's going to fill, they're going to be fairly full, but it's only for 2-3 minutes in your school.
So we do have enough space on
Yeah.
buses.
Yeah, but we only full, but we ask.
And as far as if this is approved, how will the families be notified of, like, and when will they be notified? Like, where the students will be picked up?
Some of them they won't be changed, some of it's on foot, it's just the way it happens now.
And have the drivers been talked to about, like, this possibility of this happening? Have you guys had any discussion?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, in the past, we've struggled with knowing that there's going to be a day that we have some bus drivers retire and filling those positions. We were always fearful what those were going to be. Are we still up against that wall of,
Yeah, I've got 2 drivers, you know, on their stuff. So we would have somebody that would take the stuff. I've got one other driver that would probably take the last one that they would take the right here. I can pay there, and then, it's a that's all I've got. Yeah, I got somebody right now that is also for those who put in the I stuff. And let's see, we try to get on the 5 number.
In 2 subs. In 2 subs.
Well, I've got a pretty good sub.
Okay.
List of those subs. A lot of
Gotcha.
them got their license to run the grandson or granddaughters and trip or something like that, and we don't mind being having that big jump and stuff. But the ones I've got, the list I've got, if there's 2 of them that walk around the side, so there's
Okay.
Often children, the other one is looking for something from the area.
So Dan, Brent, are you suggesting this as a talking point, or are we,
We should decide.
You need a-
We gotta get
approval.
this set up.
right? That's where I'm going. Like, you're asking for approval
Well,
to
the other side-
eliminate the route.
Yeah, the other side is that we have not had money for the last 2 years to buy buses, with actually money.
And we know the future, the financial situation that we're in, as far as what we're
concerned
getting.
too, but you're saying it's going to get worse and. Now it's going to get worse. They're saying expertise, not mine, but, yeah. So it's like, okay, this is, we definitely trying to talk about it. With that position open, we really everything, so we're glad like to do it.
And can you remind me just quickly, the oldest bus is how old,
Oldest rep right now is 16.
and the youngest? For lack of a better way to say.
We haven't bought one. The last one we ordered. It's almost 2 years.
prior to us putting off buying those buses, how long did we normally, until they drive them until we exhausted them? How many years did we try to get out?
We used to do that 12 years,
Okay.
and we went 13, and my plan, we were 14, and now we got 16 years buses. So it'll be 17, 18, by the time we budget for those, or really, in 20
Thank you for taking good care of them.
I don't want to say that anyway. I mean, our buses are in good shape. There's not there's a limit to how many.
Well, it's like anything else, right? There's probably not many of us in here that drive the same car for 18 years. Maybe some of us do. That's okay.
But along with that, to rely on that to take students on the trip, so every day it has to get paid for school and stuff. And I guess the other side of that is too, if we would make a decision, okay, we're not going to fill that position, and we try it, and something unforeseen comes up and says, oh, this is just not working, it's not a major thing to go back to how it runs. It's not like we have to go really out of it.
I know years ago, Dan, when I started the town, right, we got and talked about back then, we're gonna keep it going, because a lot of days there just wasn't that many kids on.
Yeah.
We gotta use it that much anyhow.
It's fairly, yeah, I mean, I know if you look elsewhere, and work at it, they talk about the office first council and stuff. And the South Adams, they're looking at doing a couple of comments and stuff, consolidating the building. Theirs was done, I think, in the COVID time, they intentionally tried to distance kids and stuff. And even if they probably so if you look like full unit schools and stuff, those have 20 miles for elementary transport for school, a mile and a half for middle school, and a 2-mile radius for high school. We're not talking about that. We're still offering line. We have to walk from the street to get the stop or the kitchen. It's not necessarily from down the street. Some way, some way can't do something.
Here's my last question. Are there sidewalks back in the housing additions?
The road is not really walk friendly. The older part, probably having better for sidewalks. So yeah, most places in the newer parts, I think you walk on the street to get to,
If anyone has any other questions. For Dan?
I don't, if it's an easy $40,000 cut, I'm gonna be honest with you, and if it's something we can try, and if it doesn't work, we can go back to it. I'm all for trying it, so I guess my motion is going to be to approve for the bus routes for the 25-26 year, eliminating that town route by on its own. That is my motion.
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thanks for your. All right, next we have the approval to forego reading the policies below. So is there a motion to forego reading every one of those policies aloud?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The first group of 7 policies we have are all technical corrections from Neola, who manages our policies. And their grammar, their wording changes. The 7 policies, let's see, we have 2210, and I know that all of you have had a chance to look at them and read them. 4213.01, staff student relations, 5310, health services, 5611, due process rights, 6230 budget hearing, 7310 disposition of surplus property, 8400 school safety information. So all of those were just, you would see the highlighted would just maybe be like a colon or a period, something like that. So those seven, of those seven, does anyone have any questions on any of those? When you take a look at them. And we will take them separately to approve the technical corrections first. Those seven. If there's a motion to do that.
I'll make a motion for the technical correction.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries for the technical corrections.
And if I can interject, I would also add, with technical corrections and deletions, you don't, by law, you don't do a first reading and a second reading. The board can just approve them and you go. I think the grammar police have spoken.
And next we have the deletions. 2700 was annual performance report. 8540 is vending machines, and 8640 has to do with transportation for field and other corporation-sponsored trips. So some of these, they were absorbed into another policy, and some of them are just deleted. The annual performance report has just been deleted out. So any questions about the deletions from that policy? If not, we'll need a motion to approve those deletions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next we have the ones that are the revisions. So these are ones that do have some changes that are made to them. So this would require us, if we did decide to move forward, to have, to forego a first and second reading for these. Mr. Lehman's going to go through the different revisions on these so that we're all clear. I know you received them, but just further clarification so that we're all on the same page.
This is actually the primary reason for getting together tonight. These arrived the end of the week after our last board meeting, and the recommendation is they be in place by the start of school. That's interesting. We're going to start school before we get a chance to do that. And for some schools that have a board meeting twice a month, it's really not a problem. And it's not a problem for us either. But the one thing I want to emphasize is every one of these policies came to us because the legislature made a change back in April. So you talk about local control. We are putting these in policy because the Indiana code changed and it now needs to be in our policy. But we still have to take action. Now, I would add when we get to the end of these, because they are a result of Indiana code, again, a board doesn't have to do first and second reading. They have, in this case, would actually have to take a motion to not do first and second reading, and then take action to put them into policy. That decision you can make at the end. You do not have to make that now. So there's actually, I think there's like 16 of them. The first one, 2221, it's a revision to the mandatory curriculum policy. And it's the policy, the revision has to do with the human sexuality that we have to teach at schools. And the nice part about this one is, I think those of us who are fairly conservative, these are good changes. For example, it talks about the instruction needing to be age appropriate. And it talks about when you talk about pregnancy, to actually talk about the specific stages and have pictures, again, age appropriate, to really teach kids the value of that. And it also talks about the instruction for age appropriate sexual relations between kids and when that's not appropriate, and it is appropriate. So it's kind of nice to see the state actually putting in some things that I think most of us in this room truly agree with. But that is, those are the changes in 2021. Also, it talks about a consent form, but my understanding is we already do a consent form for some of these programs. The state's now just saying you need to do that. Well, we've been doing it. And the other thing this one does, and I will tell you, these won't all take as much talk from me, so don't think we're here till midnight. But this also says that any of our human sexuality curriculum needs to be posted on our website. The links or the references, and we'll see that that happens, and that's taken care of once this is approved. So that is 22-21. Any questions about any of those? So the primary things are, it's talking about making sure things are age appropriate. It's actually talking about things we already do. But it also references the consent form, and we need to post those. Probably the biggest new thing for us, I don't think we currently post that. Now, all schools have to put that on their website. Questions on that one? Okay, 2410. If any of you are involved in special ed case conferences, what we've done in the past is if a parent would come in and they really wanted to record the conference, we didn't tell them they couldn't, but we said the school is also going to record. So we each have a recording of it. Well, the addition to this law is we have to allow them to record. So once again, we've been doing it. It's just now the Indiana code changed and we don't have a choice. We have to allow them to record a case conference meeting. Any questions on that one?
It's only audio, correct?
It just says recording.
It took out audio.
I guess we could all comb our hair and wear a nice shirt if they want to do a video recording, but I'm sure the bulk of what people want to make sure is they capture the audio. But there is technically nothing against video. I would hope if they wanted to do that, they would let us know, because again, if they record, the school will record. Well, we don't know that they want to do video. We might have to say, whoa, we can't do this today or whatever, but I don't think that'll be a problem. The requests to record are very, very minimal. And we already had a process for handling that before they ever changed the law. Any other questions? 2414. I know I talked a long time about 2221. Well, 2414 is another policy that was impacted by that same change. So you'll find a lot of the same language copied over into that. The reason for that is the first one I talked about was the curriculum that schools offer. And this one is actually about reproductive health. Obviously, you need those same statements in that policy. And before I ask for questions, I'll just jump down and say 2416 is the same thing again. And they're talking about making sure you get the consent forms, because that's the policy on student privacy and parental access, which is why you need the consent form. So those two are driven by the same change as the very first one. I know that's getting a little confusing, but these policies are so intertwined that changes in one also impact a change in another one. So I guess on that topic, questions. even back to 22, 21, because they're all on the human sexuality and reproduction. And again, these are all policies we currently have in place. These are updates.
Well, a big part of that, 2414 that I mean, if I can make a statement.
Yes.
That I like, it's going back to like teaching abstinence versus
Yep.
everything else that has been taught. So I do like that part. It's a big part of that. And it also talks about like unified settings versus like male settings and female settings and what teachers are going to teach that. So it kind of specifies that.
I would add, compared to some of the more recent changes that they forced us to put in policy, these were a nice surprise. Okay, 2623, student assessment. We've already done some of this. The new state law is that a student who does not pass I-read gets 2 chances to take it again. Even though we didn't have it in policy, we followed that this summer because the law passed in April. So we do remediation and those students get to take the test again. The state has said now you can try another time. And the other thing that's in here, I keep reaching to my screen because my laptop is screen sensitive in this one. This law also lays out some of the testing for the next 3 or 4 years of what the state thinks is going to be so beneficial. I told myself I wasn't going to commentary and stuff. But again, they're just setting the dates and the expectations for the future tests. We can say we don't want to do it. That's not an option. That's exactly. But we are appreciative that there are a few more opportunities for those students who didn't pass. Any questions on that? Okay, moving along. 3220.02. This is supplemental pay. Adams Central, along with many other schools, has a setting where if you have what we consider a hard-to-fill position, where there just aren't many teachers involved in it, you can pay that teacher some additional funds to encourage them to come. What this policy does is it says that is not part of the collective bargaining now. The school gets to decide what that amount is and what that looks like. I can see good and bad out of that, but nevertheless, the legislature thought in their wisdom that should not be a part of that. And again, another part of that law is before you start negotiations, and I know we have those people in attendance, which is awesome, you're supposed to identify that money first and say that's what you've been doing with supplemental pay, and then we work from there. But anyway, any questions on that one?
So would that include like any level setting or, is there a trickle effect there when you start, adding supplemental pay to, a certain position?
Well, we currently do to some of them when people are hired in. And that amount is typically stays with that person as long as they would stay at Adams Central. Typically, it's when you're out going to hire a new person. If it's a really hard to fill, our biomedical courses would probably fall under that. It'd be tough to find someone, and let's face it, Fort Wayne community pays more than we do. Homestead pays more than we do. You know, there's a competition out there, and it's a way for smaller schools to try to stay competitive in finding teachers.
Doug, I think that Norwell does, maybe John, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong if you know this. When they hire for Norwell, they're hard to fill positions. It's like they have like a boost for every single, like special ed. If you teach like the advanced placement classes, like that kind of stuff, it's like in their language, in their contract. Am I right about that? Okay. So like this isn't like something new for any school, I guess.
We've been doing it since right before COVID. I think we first put it in all the contracts.
Norwell was interesting, so if you have free time, go read that.
Any other questions? Okay. This next policy is 5111, and they added one line. They said students can now transfer schools for athletic reasons. I think we probably all saw that one coming when the colleges did what they did. And anyway, you've always had transfer students now for the last several years. Well, now it's specifically, let me see if I can find that sentence. Oh, it said it was actually a deletion. No transfer student shall be accepted for enrollment for athletic reasons. Gone. I don't know if that generates any, well, it probably generates a lot of questions, but not about the policy. 5200, again, it actually impacts 4 policies. So see, I told you we would go a little faster here. The state has now said it is absolutely illegal to expel a student for chronic attendance problem. Many schools, when the list just got so long on attendance, we would say, if you're not going to come, then we're going to deal with it. But you can't do that. And that is actually in policy 5200, which is the attendance policy. It is also in 5600, which is the discipline policy. It's in 5605, which is the suspension and expulsion of students with disabilities. And it's in 5610, which is the suspension and expulsion policy. And some of you are thinking, you're really serious about this? You can go on our website and go to something called Board Docs. And when you can't sleep some night, you can start reading through these. And so really that's 4 of them with the exact same thing. And it's just simply saying, we can't expel a student if the problem is attendance. Questions on that? $52.23, as we expected, I think everybody here is familiar with LifeWise. They have added to that policy, again, already being done, but the students, the staff at LifeWise have to have background checks. And I'm pretty confident they're doing that because I'm familiar with the LifeWise program. So again, it's not necessarily new, but it is now state law that they have to be. Questions on that one? $55.17 is the harassment policy. And this is a very small deletion in a policy that again kind of fits back with the human sexuality. It still states race, color, national origin, sex. They have taken back out gender status, sexual orientation, and/or gender identity. Those things that we put in here several years ago, because of the new administration, those have come out of that policy. And it's a 12-page policy in one sentence deletion. Did anybody have any questions on that? Okay. 5517.01 is the bullying policy, which again, we've had in place. What they did is they changed the timelines on when there needs to be contact with parents and all those meetings and things like that. They changed those in that policy. See if I can find an example. For example, on several of them, it says before the end of the next instructional day. A lot of the times it said 5, they were saying 5 days. Now they're saying, maybe not today, but by tomorrow, we need to make those contacts. Any questions on that? Okay, we did 5600 and 5605 and 5610. 5771. There's times when I read some of these updates, I want to say what brought this on. I want to read this edition. If a corporation student has died, transferred, dropped out, or otherwise withdrawn from enrollment in the corporation shall not remove the student's property without first providing the parents an opportunity to collect the property. I don't know why the school wants it, but that's the change. If the student's not here, we have to let the parents have whatever they left at school. So I'm thinking we probably do that. And for some reason, somewhere, something happened that they felt there needed to be a law for that. Any questions on that? Okay, so the decision for the board tonight is, first of all, do you want to do first and second reading? And if so, we're done. If you want to make them law, because you can, because of Indiana code, you can take a motion to forego first and second reading and just pass them and make them policy. Or you could say, I'm not sure about one of these, we could pull it out, could approve all the others and do those separate ones as first and second reading. It's at the board's discretion at this point.
Are there any others that we have further questions that have thought about seeing one? And they had a chance to actually look at it, and we were given the revisions that I should read through, so
I do have a question about 2410. Like, is it in our best interest to always record? Just in our best interest.
Part of that becomes storage of all of that data. When you think about, I mean, I would hate to guess how many case conferences there are in a school year. And many of them are an hour or more. That would be a lot. And I will tell you that almost all of those conferences are done as great teamwork, and everybody's focused on how we can help the student. So I would say there would not be a benefit of that. And I would say too, we have a pretty good idea if things are not going to be maybe as cordial. And in some of those, then one of the people from the co-op will actually come to our meeting to help with just the legal pieces and all of that. So I could see that being a little problematic.
But if you don't document it, it never happened. So I guess that's where.
Well, there are meticulous notes taken at
yeah.
those meetings.
So,
There's even a whole software package, IIEP or whatever it's called, where it's all, the co-op has access to that, and all the teachers, and it's very, very well documented at the meeting. And when you're all done, everybody has to sign that document that they all agree that that's.
very good.
Other questions?
Policies we should go back and look at again? Or is it not?
5223, you said you assume that likewise is doing background checks.
They are.
Is there someone here that?
No,
assumes
they
that?
are. They asked me to help volunteer a couple times and I would have to do background check, just to even volunteer.
You don't document it, or, I mean, is there someone that will routinely follow up on that annually, or does that fall in someone's?
I mean, now that it's in policy, we might
Yeah,
have to
that's where I'm
ask for
going.
that.
Right.
Audra, do you know, since it's in policy now, that we would need
But
to
I
ask
think we would want to have
a copy?
company.
I mean, originally it was off campus and we really were all hands off, but now that it's law.
So I guess, are there any of those that anyone feels like we need to have further, like just like more time on? If there are not,
Are we talking more time on just the changes or the policy as a whole?
well, we're just making.
And I don't need to
the
change
Just the changes, correct?
if there are, anytime there are some of these policies that come up that even what we currently have, you're like, I don't know about that. You just need to let me know and I'll add it to a time when we can really dig into that policy if we want to make a change for us. Because some of these, there is discretion at the board level, but these current changes that aren't. But if we ever could bring a policy up for a change and you see something else in the policy, you just have to tell me and we'll get it worked into review.
I'll take some information to put out for consideration.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Then we can go forward and approve these
Now we need an
policies.
approval of the of the revision.
these 15 policies that we just discussed for revisions. I need a motion to approve those.
We have a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next, we're moving on to our personnel board action items. We have 2 approval to hire. We have 2 individuals in our maintenance custodial area, Ms. Karen Luce and Ms. Angela Arnold. You have anything to add, or we're just?
I just would say, at the last meeting, you gave me permission to bring people on so we could start school. These 2 people are already working for us, but since we were having a meeting, I said, let's make them truly official.
All right, we'll take those 2 together if there's a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Welcome to those individuals. Next is our superintendent's report.
The only thing I have tonight, there's been a lot of conversation about discipline and that at all levels. Since I arrived, I've heard that multiple times. And I want you to know I've started working my way into what do our handbooks look like and all the good things that go with that. And I will continue to do that. I just wanted to ask the board, are there specific things you would like me to do as I dig my way into that? I'm meeting with administrators, looking at the handbook. But if there are things you'd say, well, I'd really like you to look in for this, or I can do that. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep digging in and seeing how we move forward and get improvement.
Audra's gonna be mad at me for this one. I feel like looking through some of that handbook, our discipline is, our lane is this wide. If there are 10,000 chances that we give to make it right, I think 10,000 chances is too many. That's my personal opinion. I think when it comes to some of the discipline things that we're dealing with in our school system today, I feel like, I don't know if it's one strike and you're out type thing, but I think some of those habitual offenders that continue to do the same thing over and over and over again, and we're at the 4th time, the 5th time, the 6th time, and things like that, I think that's too many. And I know that our handbook allows it to be that many, and I'm probably speaking more towards the elementary school side of things. I'd like to see us at least have a conversation of narrowing that down and maybe not give them 7 chances to screw up all the time.
So you're talking about like an individual handbook policy, the consequences for that policy. You're not talking about there's way too many policies.
No, yeah, I'm talking about the discipline that
Okay.
takes place for the action that are,
Like if you go down through the elementary handbook, there's like, if this happens, then this, and then they get this many chances or whatever, and then after chance number 5, then we're
Okay.
talking about, being suspended or whatever. And sometimes I feel like, okay, well, if you yell out in class or whatever, like I can see that, but like for example, bullying, you can have up to 5 chances before you're suspended for 10 days. So like to me, it's like or inappropriate touch in elementary is five chances before you're not speak tonight. I'm exhausted, but suspended for 10 days. So some of those things I feel like we need to make sure that the action and the consequence fit together.
Mhm.
I have a list of
I can tackle that.
Similar to that, I just think that like where the accountability lands with some of those decision making, like, I mean, that the, some minor, some major, like, is our principals at every level being the last call there? Are they engaged in all those kind of major decisions?
Okay. Appreciate it. What else?
I just think consistency and making sure that it is being followed the same way and maybe not leniency given to students at times. I mean, some situations obviously require leniency, but I think it needs to be consistent. And I don't know, looking through documentation, you know, if that's how that's found out, or if it's just something that is more conscientious of making sure that they follow.
Yeah, just making sure that our policies as stated are being followed for communication and, you know, and especially now that we have, well, you have the next day to reach out for situations and, you know, that's law now, so maybe just making sure that those policies are consistently being followed.
And I can also add that our two administrative teams, both in the middle school, high school, and the elementary, are having these same conversations. And been very open to the things I've commented about so far, and we just want to make sure we're going in the direction that the board wants us to go. I could take more, or I don't have anything else for my report.
Okay. Well, then, any motions in front of you?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next board meeting is Tuesday, August 12th. And I think we're going to be at 7 PM.
Yeah,
We have our
Yeah.